I wanted to quickly just talk a little bit about this. This is my newest computer, which looks a little bit like a computer from 2005. It's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while since I have used a laptop that weighed around 8 pounds, had a 17-inch screen, and look at the ports. It has 2 mini display ports, an HDMI, full-size HDMI port. It's got USB here and in the back and then 2 on the side. It's even got, oh my gosh, I haven't seen one of these in years, an Ethernet port, plus separate microphone, headphone jacks, and optical out. This thing is a beast, and here's what's really unusual about it. This is the Oryx Pro, O-R-Y-X Pro, from a company called System76. System76 sells hardware not with Windows on it, not with Mac OS on it, but with Linux on it, with Ubuntu to be specific. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to buy an Ubuntu computer from a Linux integrator and see how the state of the art has progressed. It's interesting because when you first boot this up, you get the same kind of OEM experience that you would get if you were running a Windows or a Mac machine. It welcomes you. It says set up an account, log into your Wi-Fi. This thing, it's funny, as old as the outside looks, is actually some pretty new stuff on the inside. This is a Skylake 6th generation i7 processor, very fast processor. I did put 32 gigs of a DDR3 RAM in it, so it's got a lot of memory. It also has a NVIDIA video card, GPU, the 980M. It's a mobile 980, but that's a high-end. You could, if I had Windows on here, I could probably run the Oculus Rift on this thing. It's pretty heavy duty. And the drive is SSD, but not just any SSD, that M.2 SSD that Alan Malventano was talking about using NVMe. That's the fastest PCIe bus, fastest SSD you can get. So this is a beast of a machine. Somebody asked me when I told them I was going to buy this, and by the way, as equipped, $3,000.
Well, it's a desktop in the shape of a laptop.
It's a desktop in the shape of a laptop. And somebody said, why would you put all that heavy-duty stuff in Linux? Isn't Linux really for old systems? You put it on old machines to kind of keep them running. That's one way people use Linux. But really, scientists, programmers, a lot of people use Linux and want high-end machines. For instance, I could run virtual machines on this with all that RAM. I could have a lot more going on. It's a really fast machine with a lot of capability. I'm not going to carry this around. It only has 2 hours of battery life. And by the way, if you did carry it around, you'd have to carry around the power brick, which gives the naming power brick a whole new meaning. It is a brick.
That's why they call them bricks, Leo. Back in the day, they were all that size.
It is heavy. This is about the size of the Xbox One power brick. It really is huge. So this is not portable, except in the kind of most extreme sense. I guess you could put it in a briefcase and carry it home if you didn't mind your arm getting a little bit longer.
You need a big briefcase.
What I bought it for is my day-to-day show computer on the table. And what I wanted was a big screen. It's 17 inches. It's only 1080p, but that's fine. I want the text to be big. I want it to be legible. It's an IPS LCD screen, so it looks good. And it runs Linux beautifully, although if you join me, I'm running the GNOME operate desktop on here, GNOME 3, and if you join me for the unboxing on Wednesday, you might be surprised to hear me singing this computer's praises because it wasn't working so very well when I took it out of the box. I did the OEM sign-up, and then I did something that I think is user error, but Linux allows you a lot of scope for user error. I installed the GNOME desktop because I don't like Unity, and it asked me, and this is a very Linuxy thing to do, it asked me, well, all right, you now have 2 login managers. You have LightDM and you have GDM3. Which would you like to use? Without any hint that there was a bad choice, and I chose the bad one. I chose GDM3. I eventually thrashed the system, wasn't able to boot into it. And then, and this was a real frustration, the nice thing about Linux, if you thrash a system, you make a USB key, you reboot, you wipe it, you start over again. It's probably the fastest install of any of the big 3 operating systems, much faster than Windows and OS X. It just takes a couple of minutes and you start over. I set it up, as many Linux users do, so that I have all of my configuration files on GitHub. So it's a very easy thing for me to clone them and restore the machine back to its original state. So this would have been a simple thing, except for a massive bug in Ubuntu 16.04, the shipping version of Ubuntu, which, thank you System76, they're graybeards who aren't so old, but they are definitely graybeards, said, "Oh, I know what's happening. There's a kind of obscure bug in Linux, or actually one of the tools that's often used on Linux installs and certainly used by Ubuntu, that it causes a bad interaction between a Skylake processor and the NVIDIA 980M. Now, that's an unusual combination for most Linux machines. I had never run into it because I'm using older machines. He said, oh, this has been fixed in the latest version of Ubuntu. Just download the daily build 16.04.1, and it should all be fixed. And he was right. It did, and it installed, and GNOME's working great. The company I got it from, System76, gave me great support. I was very pleased to see this. You know, they were on the internet with me. I actually never talked to them. They make desktops, they make workstations, they make servers, and these are priced kind of high end. I mean, it's like I'm buying a Macintosh, but it is real. Look at that. I mean, this is really great hardware. And I love it that they have their own Linux drivers. They have what's called a PPA, a private repository of drivers specifically for the hardware they sell. You add that, and it's automatically kept up to date on your Linux box. It's the reason I'm going to stick with Ubuntu, even though I'm not a huge Ubuntu fan. So, pros and cons. I mean, the con, I guess, would be the price. It is not inexpensive, and many people run Linux in older machines they've decided to kind of refurbish. But for me, a real pro was having all of this hardware, fast processors, lots of RAM, fast SSD, an Ethernet port running at a, I think it's a gigabit Ethernet port, and having multiple HDMI and mini display ports. I could run probably 3 or 4 monitors off of this easily. Really was a selling point. It's got nice Onkyo stereo speakers. You know, this is obviously some Chinese OEM makes the hardware here. It even has a fingerprint reader, which of course doesn't work because there's no software for it to work with. But I don't care. A very nice trackpad. It works 100% out of the box. Every key, all the function keys, everything work. And I really like this. It's because it's a 17-incher.
Yeah,
this
you have
is
a number pad.
A big keyboard. I have a numeric
full 10 key there,
keypad.
yeah.
I even have, and I love this too, not only all the function keys, but of course the function keys are mapped to other functions. But the default is that the function key does what a function key should do. And then if I press the FN, I can get the volume up or down. And all of this, oops, I just turned off the screen. All of this works, which is nice, out of the box with the Ubuntu as shipped. So there's a lot to be said for this. I put GNOME on here instead of Unity. I prefer the GNOME desktop. They say that all the official Ubuntu releases will work just fine on this, including Xubuntu and Lubuntu and all of those. I'm going to say a really great. Great support from System76. So definitely a thumbs up. If you're looking for a Linux box of any kind, you want to, you know, I think scientists, I think programmers tend to like Linux a lot, where it's not going to be as good as we talked about. If you use Lightroom, you want to edit photos, if you want to edit video, some of the open source software probably isn't quite up to the same quality level as the closed source stuff from Adobe and other
But it's got Chromium on there, right? So
well, and this is, desktop Linux, I think, is a different, once you have Chromium on here, it comes with Firefox, and most, open free people, I guess, prefer Firefox to Google's offering. But I use Google Chrome, and this is a full Chrome. It's not Chrome itself, it's Chromium, the open source Chrome project that Chrome is based on. But everything, it syncs with my Google, all of my Google stuff. The Google accounts are on here. If you just use this, it would be as functional as a Chromebook or a Mac or a Windows machine. If the Chrome works exactly the same, including LastPass and my authenticators and all my plugins.
That gets you a long way. Just
it is.
that.
Nowadays, that's all, in many ways, that's all you need. So I'm very happy. And then, of course, I can do things like pull down a command line and start really geeking out. I love this. This is a GNOME extension that gives you with the tilde key, just like on Quake. Remember the Quake console where you could start entering go into God mode stuff? I have the command line there. I also, of course, have a full screen terminal for my IRSSI chat room experience. Nothing quite like it. There you go, my friends. Definitely, if you're looking for Linux, there are other companies that make Linux boxes. Dell even said, in fact, that's what I've used for the last few years, is Dell's version. The XPS 13 Ubuntu version. It's great, runs all versions of Linux, runs Debian beautifully. There are other companies like Reason that also sell Linux dedicated hardware, but I've been very happy with this. Colorado-based System76. And no, I didn't get a discount.